What about yours?
So I never really like. It's been a while since I've had the same nightmare, but for a long time I had the same nightmare over and over again. And I feel like I always have this nightmare when kind of similarly, like I know I need to make some sort of change.
Yeah.
And like when I started having the nightmare, I knew I was like, okay, I need to move out of Colorado. I need to go explore a different route. Not that I love Colorado, absolutely. And so I was born and raised in Colorado, as we mentioned. But so I got to a point after college, I was like, I need to go move out of Colorado. I need to like explore something new other than this area that I grew up in. And so the nightmare that I kept having, I was on this space station. It was always a space station, and it was like it was meant to be like a prison type of thing, but not necessarily like strictly prison. It was just that we were all on this space station, but we couldn't leave. But we weren't necessarily like prisoners of anything. We were just stuck on this space station. And I was the one leading the charge of like, we got to get off of this thing. And I was never like clear of what was coming to get us. I don't know whether it was like an alien or another like human space station coming to get us, or that the space station was just lacking something. But it was always this feeling of like, I got to get out. And I would always be like running through, and other members of the space station like, no, you got to stay here, man. Like, what are you doing? We can't leave. Like, and so it always ended with me in this chase of running from everybody else and like going through and like knocking people around like, I got to get out of here. And then it always ended right before I would get off the space station. Like I would get to a point where like, all right, here it is. I'm almost out. And then I would wake up from the dream. And so that just kept happening over and over again.
Was anybody with you when you like had anybody followed you to the point where you were almost out? Or was it everybody just kind of like whatever, and you're just like, I'm on my own, I'm getting out of here?
Once I instigated the like, all right, I got to get out of here, then people were chasing me because they were like, no, you got to stay here.
Right.
And so it was always that I was running from people trying to keep me there. But it was never that like someone was running with me. It was always just me on my own trying to get out. And I was the like outlier of the space station. They're like, no, you got to stay here. And so I started having that one over and over again in Colorado. And then
you were how old?
So I was probably like 23.
Okay.
22, 23.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had it all the time in Colorado. Then I moved out of Colorado and then didn't have it for a while. And then when I was in New York, and this is when I knew I needed to come out I needed another change from New York, I started having it again. And I was like, I've only had this dream over and over again in one specific part of my life. So
yeah,
I knew I needed to make some sort of change there.
Well, how long did you have that dream in Colorado?
I had it so I graduated college, and then I was working at this in-treatment facility for kids. And then a few months after that, I started having it. And I think that's just because I knew, like, okay, I kind of saw, like, all right, if I keep doing this job and staying here, I kind of see my trajectory.
Yeah.
But I want something that I don't really know where the future is, type of thing.
Yeah.
I wanted something where I was like, all right.
Something adventurous.
Exactly. Yeah.
And did you how many times did you have it?
I had it, like, almost every night for
oh my God,
a couple months.
That's crazy,
like.
man.
Yeah. Oh, is that your foot?
Yeah, it's my foot. No, I was going to let you just rub it for a little bit. It
I
kind
thought
of
it was
felt
just
good.
like a part of the carpet, like curved up. Yeah.
That's my big toe. So every night.
It felt like every night. It probably wasn't every night, but
at least like every other night. That's
at
crazy.
Least every other night. Yeah.
Spaceship or a space shuttle?
Mm-hmm. It was very like. You ever seen the movie 2001: Space Odyssey?
Yeah.
It was very much something like that. Like always pictured it as like a sphere and like something you can move around very freely in.
Right, but never changes.
Never changes. Yeah.
Wow.
So
from the moment you had it to the moment you left was how long?
Oh, it was probably at least like 8 months or something.
Wow.
It was a long term, because at first I was having the dream and I was just kind of like, oh, that was a weird dream. And then after a few months of that, I was like, maybe there's something to this dream. And then started kind of trying to like delve into like, what might that be? And then a couple months down the road again, I was like, okay, I think I just need a change here. I think I need to change the scenery. Yeah.
And then you moved to New York.
Then I moved to Pennsylvania. Actually. I got a job with a theater. I was an acting intern.
Okay.
And so the theater it's called Gamut Theater, and they were the Harrisburg Shakespeare Theater of that area.
Yeah.
Harrisburg Shakespeare Association, I think, was their official moniker there. And yeah, I had done a little bit of Shakespeare, but not like a ton. And I had an acting teacher in Colorado who was like, I think you should try to like get some more like classical theater experience. I had done a lot of like contemporary plays and like contemporary short film stuff in Colorado. And that acting teacher was like, maybe try to get some more classic stuff. And that's when I started doing Shakespeare in Colorado, and then found that theater that was looking for an acting intern. I was like, okay, that seems like a good adventurous leap there.
Nice.
And so, yeah, then I went to Pennsylvania, and then from there I went to New York.
But you didn't have the dream again until New York.
And in New York, it was pretty quick. Like once I had the dream 2 times, I was like, all right, I know.
And how long were you in New York?
I was in New York for almost a year. I think it was like 11 months and like 15 days type, like super close to a year.
And what were you not doing? Because I know you were working.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So, and I know that job is time consuming.
Yeah.
The most time consuming.
Very time consuming, but it wasn't that I wasn't like also exploring my creative side. Mm-hmm. So I was doing lots of creative things, but I think one of the biggest things was I was just not like being creative for myself in a way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so I was very much just kind of going through the mode. Like I was being led through every asset of New York rather than me like leading myself, like taking the charge in New York. I was very much like being like taken a hold of, I think, if that makes sense, rather than me like choosing like, all right, I'm going to walk here. It was very much like, all right, this is where you go next. And I didn't really have a lot of control over it. And so I think that was the biggest thing that like...
Was it due to a manager?
Well, not like... It wasn't due to anyone. I think it was just due to like I had packed myself so full, like such a full day schedule in New York that everything was just very like, oh, okay, I am being led from one thing to the next, and I am not really in control of any of these things.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Creatively, absolutely. And then like job wise too, it just felt very much like, oh, I'm not the one in charge of how this operates necessarily. So how did you change that?
Well, like leaving New York is one edge, and coming out to LA specifically, I was like, all right, I want to be in control of how I go about work and creative processes. And LA definitely like kind of helped that spark, and just kind of having that mindset, knowing like, okay, I'm getting into another big city vibe here. And so I'm going to take control of how I go about both my job and then creative outlooks outside of my job. And
that's just kind of like picking things that you like more?
Picking things that I liked more, yeah. Not doing things that I was just taking just because it was like, oh, this is being offered to me. I need to say yes to everything.
Yes.
To the point where I was like, all right, I'm only going to say yes to things I actually want to do.
That's what I was thinking you were.
Yeah. Sorry.
Because that's a hard thing to do, is start saying no to stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like all you want to do is do that thing, but just not in that way.
Yeah, exactly. And even with like work too, I was very much just like, oh yeah, everything that comes in front of me, I'm going to say yes to and just take everything on. And then that's how I got to a point where I was like, I have no control of this. I've just said yes and committed myself to so many different things here that then once I started being able to say no and just mentally letting myself say no to things, that's when I was like, okay, now I have control of everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, you're probably saying yes to everything because like you're just a grinder.
Yeah. And
you know?
Yeah, I feel like I've always had like you got to grind and like work hard mentality.
Yeah.
Like, and I think like you probably, sports instills that in you too, of like, all right, work hard. But yeah, not necessarily working smart. Working smarter, not harder. Yeah.
That's what us wrestlers have to battle with every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I actually don't work that hard. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, oh shit. Yeah. I mean, I totally get that, man. But when you don't know how to work smarter, you just work harder. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then burnout happens.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where you're like, oh man, you don't do it because you're just so burnt out.
Yeah. 100%, man. Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. That's an interesting story, man. Nightmares.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anybody else having a nightmare like that. They probably do.
Mm-hmm.
They just probably don't talk about it because it's super, that's a vulnerable thing. Talk about what gives you a nightmare.
Yeah.
Especially if it's not like murder or massacres or something like that.
And I've had the like don't know your lines for the play nightmare before.
Okay.
Too. And every time I've had that, I've only had that one like 2 or 3 times in my life type of thing. And I think, like you were saying, when I feel underprepared for something.
Right.
But yeah, it always ended right before I got on stage. And I had the same idea of like, oh, I can go out there. I'm just going to improv this and it's going to be great. And then right before the nightmare ends, I'm like, uh-oh, it's about to happen. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy though? Like there's something about you as a performer or as a person who would even have the balls to get on stage that says, yeah, I mean, I can improv it.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
The like cockiness of like,
yeah,
I got this. It's gonna be fine. Yeah,
yeah. It's like, and I've done that on stage with stand up, and like right when I started, and I didn't have enough material to do that. You know, and I thought I could just kind of like pull a punchline out of my ass.
Oh, gotcha.
Or like make something funny, and it's like, yeah, man, when you don't have enough material. You really do, I guess, at least in stand-up, you realize that your safety nets, like in a conversation, whether it's a facial expression or, you know, like or, you know, an accent that you do or something like that, not always going to be funny in front of, like, people that don't know you.
Or know? Just, like, where you're on stage perspective, I think, too. Like, in a conversation, I think I get what you're saying. Like, in a conversation that works, but in... Yeah. You're there to entertain them. It's like, oh, that didn't quite work. That didn't go over the way I thought it was.
Yeah, there's a different pace for sure. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's interesting that you know, you always think you can improv it in that dream. I don't know. I find that very fascinating. You had the same thought as I did in that nightmare.
The like, I got this. It'll be fine. Yeah, I've done this. I can improv my way out of this. Yeah.
But the initial thought of like, oh shit. I haven't gone over the script. It's almost like it's like a shot at your integrity. It's like, dude, why would you not do this? Why haven't you learned any of the lines? Yeah. And then you're like, oh, but yeah, you know, I'm fine. I can do it. Yeah. You know, it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's a strength, obviously, but like also, you know, not the best way to go about it, but like it is a strength to be like. I feel like people get mad at people nowadays, really, when they don't apologize by crying their eyeballs out in utter defeat. You know what I mean? Like people accept certain apologies.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like to be at a certain level of like productivity or confidence, you can't apologize like that because that wastes too much time. You know what I mean? Like if you make a mistake in a wrestling match, if you shoot a double leg and your head's down, okay, and you get stuffed, and he spins behind you, you don't wait out on bottom. God dang it, man! You come right up to your feet, right? You're moving up.
Yeah.
You don't give that error enough time to breathe. You cover it up with motion, right? Yeah. With movement. My coach used to say, he's like, you can make up for a lot of mistakes with motion or with continual movement. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you just keep moving, you'll find a way to make up for that one mistake. But like, I don't know. I just think about it. I think it's a great character trait to be able to be like, in that moment, be like, oh, just improv it. But also delusional.
Yeah.
But that's part of confidence. You know, you're having faith in something that you don't know is going to happen. You don't know if it's going to work out or not. But like, I've been in a few situations where I've kind of improv my way through, so I can do it for this. You know what I mean? But it's just such a big stage, you know, no pun intended.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's not the best approach. And you feel it. You know, in the nightmare, you feel it. Like, oh, man.
Yeah, you know it's not going to work.
Yeah. My mom's going to be mad at me. She's, you know, like when she sees this, she's going to be so mad at me. You know, or somebody, you know.